Well, I'd like to get started. Jack, thank you for being here.
Okay.
We've taken
Glad to
this
be here.
moment to sit down with Scene Chief Jack Rodway, retired Navy bandsman who has a lot of great stories, and I'm a history guy. I think it's really important. I don't think Navy musicians are very good stewards of our own history.
No.
So to keep more of this from being lost, our khaki team, senior leader, Senior Hawes is here. We have Senior Chief Hudson, also Chief Charlton. And we've got some questions for you, if you don't mind.
No.
And the desired end state for this is not only for the U.S. Naval War College Historical Society to have this, but perhaps even the Library of Congress and on our own Facebook page. So if you're good with that, I'd like to kick things off.
Yeah.
Jack, what can you tell me about the history of Navy bands prior to the establishment of Navy Band Northeast in 1974?
Well, there was a band in Boston, 1st Naval District Band. There was also the Crew Deslant Band here in Newport. There was a couple of flotilla bands that went to sea in a pool out of Newport, along with a New London band, sub-bass band. There was a band in Brooklyn, one in Philly. So those are what's basically the Northeast Band replaced with all those bands.
Now, Jack, you mentioned, you said Deslant Band, and for the younger sailors who don't know, that's Com Crew Deslant. Can you speak to that a little bit?
In 1960, when I first got here, it was the Deslant Band. There was Crewlant and Deslant. And there was a warrant officer, Avery, who was looking to get the bands combined to make the Crew Deslant. And they did that. And he came up here a couple of times with us, but Chief Van Shoemaker was the first one. Van Shoemaker was actually a classmate of Van Johnson,
Really?
the movie actor, yeah, because they both here from Newport. And he was a heck of a sax player himself. He had the band, and then Cecil Strange relieved him here.
He's in charge of the Musicians Union briefly, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the treasurer for the Navy Musicians Association. And he had took over from the band. And during that time, we played jobs throughout the area, up to playing the, I think it was the CB ball at the Fargo building. There's a gym behind the Fargo building. We played for that up there.
So, Jack, can you tell me the size of the band when you arrived in 1960?
1960, the Crew Deslant Band was billeted as 17-piece. I think at the time we had close to 20. Out of that 20, there was 9 E6s. All right?
That's a lot.
Which is another part of that destroyer escort story we'll get into then. But, and they had the Naval Station Band here at the same time. I didn't mention the Naval Station Band before, but that was here. And they were in building, there was a gym. You know where the new gym is now?
Yes.
There was a gym there, an old gym, similar to Building 108, that the bass band was in. Yeah, so that's...
So, Jack, just in closing on this topic here, you see our facility now, our band spaces. How does that compare and contrast to what the band spaces were like for the Com Crew Deslant Band?
In 1960, the band's storage room, office, and head were the size of this room.
Now you had a big band, right? The big band was going out the door. You had a ceremonial band.
Yeah.
So,
Well, it was every job was basically the big band. You know, it was either what we called back then a bag band. You still call them bag bands?
Yeah.
Okay, there was a bag band. We'd go out on the field. We would play ship arrivals, ship departures. You know, changes of command, that whole ball of wax.
OCS graduations.
OCS graduations, OCS passing reviews, all right. Marine Corps birthday balls, Marine passing reviews. We played Marine Corps birthday balls. When I had the band here in the 70s, I would get a call from the Marines over at the War College, the officers, right, wanting us to play for the Marine Corps birthday ball. I'd say, I'm sorry, we're already booked the enlisted party over here. And they said, oh, I'm sorry, Chief. Okay, they'd hire somebody else. And then as soon as I got off the phone with him, I'd call the top sergeant. over there and say, by the way, we're booked with you for the birthday ball, right? I always made sure that we took care of the Marines there because they took care of us.
Jack, let me turn over to our senior enlisted leader, Scene Chief Hawes. Got a question for you?
What?
Well, thanks again, Jack, for taking time out of your schedule to
my
come
pleasure.
over and
My pleasure.
feed us some history. Can you tell us about the story about how you had to assemble a jazz combo on a Friday after the band had already gone on Liberty?
Oh, yeah. I had let the band go for a weekend. We were pretty busy back then. I mean, there was one stretch where we were 40 days without a day off. And for a 13-piece band, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So when we didn't have a job, go, you know. I pretty much ran the Liberty for the band at the time. So I got a call. It's a Friday afternoon. There's a commander over at the War College. He said, Chief, I got a problem. I said, what's your problem? He said, the Admiral asked me to book a combo for tonight and tomorrow night for an incoming class at the War College. He said, and I forgot to do that. Can you help me out? I said, and I told him, I said, well, the band's on Liberty for the weekend. I said, but I can catch my piano player. You'll have a combo.
Right.
Luckily, I caught the piano player, because otherwise we'd have both been in trouble. But sent one out that night, and the second night, it was Friday and Saturday night. I went out Saturday night, put on my best bib and tucker, and went out at the Admiral's house right over here at the War College, and showed up with the band. And the Admiral came over to me and asked what they were doing. This is 1973, just before the Northeast Band was being formed. They were talking about it, doing all the reconstructing of the Navy music program at the time.
So Jack, this is Vice Admiral Stansfield Turner.
Yes.
Who would then go on to become CIA director.
Exactly, yeah. And he came over to me and said, well, Chief, what are they going to do with the band now that Crew Deslant's out? Because my command, my boss, had gone south to Norfolk, moved everything down, but he left the band here. We then came underneath 1st Naval District, who at the time, I wish I could remember that admiral's name, I can't. But he wore the hat for 1st Naval District. He also wore the hat for Naval Base Newport. So we came under him. So we started calling ourselves, instead of Crew Deslant, unofficially we call ourselves the Com 1 Band South. Right? So Admiral Turner said to me, what are they doing with the band now with the reconstruction? I said, well, they haven't decided. They're talking about Brooklyn, they're talking about Boston, they're talking about Utica, New York, you know.
So they were basically talking about different locations
to put a band
in the Northeast.
Yeah.
Wow.
So when I told him this, he looked at me and said, well, Chief, he says, I think there's enough work right here in Newport for a band, don't you? I said, yes, sir. You don't argue, you don't say no to a three-star admiral. And he said, he turned to his aide and he says, call a bureau tomorrow. So welcome aboard, guys. We played 2 nights at the Admiral's house, and the new Northeast Band ended up here in Newport.
So Admiral Turner,
that's my story, by the way, and I'm sticking to it. I don't care what anybody else says.
So Admiral Turner was a huge fan of Navy music.
I think so, yeah. Especially since we played a lot of stuff for the War College. We played, actually, at one point, this was before I went to Crew Deslant, I had the bass band here in Newport, the Naval Station Band. We actually played honors for the Vice President of Vietnam in 1970, when he came in. That was an exciting story too.
Yeah.
But
so I'm interested in hearing the story when you're stationed on the USS Van Forest. I guess there's a story out there that you had to figure out putting a band together with untrained musicians. I guess from the ship's crew. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about how that went down.
that was 1963. I'll go back a year before that. 1962, there was a Captain Allendorfer who saw Navy bands throughout the fleets. We're all kind of overloaded, as I mentioned before. The Crew Deslant Band, when I got here in 1960, had 9 first class out of 20 people, right? He saw that the bands were overloaded, top heavy with senior petty officers. He says, why don't we take some of these petty officers and put them aboard ship to organize company bands, ship's company bands, which up front sounds like a great idea. But as you look back into it, if you go out and do a good job, you're hurting the Navy music program. If you do a bad job, guess what it hurts?
Right.
You, you know. So, nobody really wanted to do this. Duke Garrett got in, he was on E6 at the time. He's a trumpet player, excellent trumpet player. Duke was great people. He was, in his youth, a member of the Lionel Hampton Band. So
Wow.
this, you know, he's a great trumpet player. He had the experience of going aboard the ship with his band, and Captain Allendorf happened to be the commodore of that when they went out. And Allendorf had brought Duke, and they'd sent one MUSN along with him as an assistant, which they did for me too the following year. But Allendorfer introduced Duke. He says, Duke, this is your band. Band, this is Duke. Let me hear something. All right? So I, at least when it came my time, go back a little bit before my time, Chief Strange, who had the band at the time, Cecil, called us junior LPOs at the time, which I was at the time. I had only been E6 about 2 years by this time. He said, the Bureau wants one of you guys to volunteer to organize this ship's company band that's going out in February for 3.5 months to South Africa. They want one of you guys to volunteer. The thing is, if none of you volunteer, they're going to pick one of you anyway. So they, Chief recommended to us that we all volunteer. At least it would look like you're all interested in doing it, right? Even though we're all going, no, you know. So we all volunteered, and yours truly got picked, all right? Unlike Duke, I was given a month to rehearse with these guys. They came up on their own liberty time to the band room at the Marine Barracks, which was still inside the gym. This side, we had the stage to rehearse on. And we worked on Marching to Victory books, you know, the easy stuff, you know, and bag band things, all march size things. And we went aboard ship. Chuck, trumpet player, ended up being my drummer for my combo, which was interesting because I'm an alto sax player, and I had 2 guitars, all right, which, as sax players will know, playing with guitars, with the tunes they know and the keys they know, puts you in god-awful keys on alto.
Yeah, very.
All right, which I learned very quickly how to play in F sharp and C sharp and all that. But anyway, we did, with that band, rehearsed every night for a month. And come the Friday before we were supposed to leave, I got a call. It says that the captain of the ship, Lieutenant Commander Reed, would love to hear the band before we go out to sea. He will be up there Friday night to the Crew Desland Band Room to hear the band. We played for him. We went to sea. I was in the Navy 12 years at this time. Consider myself a salt of sorts. I'd been on carriers. I'd been on just light cruisers, mostly carriers. Been to sea a few months. I was turning myself inside out before we passed the ground cells here in the bay on that destroyer escort, because you could put 4 of those on a deck of a carrier. We went from here to Norfolk, from Norfolk to Trinidad. Have any of you heard of Captain McDonald?
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Who was the commanding officer of the
School music.
School of Music? When I was in the basic course, he was the lieutenant commander, an officer in charge in Anacostia. When we pulled into Trinidad, he was the executive officer at Trinidad, the base in Trinidad. He came to hear my combo, with my 2 guitars and me, and the Crew Des Flop 4 band, which was also on that cruise. They were on a troop ship, where I was on the destroyer escort, which was exciting when we pulled out. We pull alongside for refueling or mail transfer on the High Line. There would be the Crew Des Flop 4 Navy band playing, and I'd have my little ship's company band playing. I'd play a tune, they'd play a tune, I'd play a tune. They'd play my previous tune back to me. As much to say, this is what it's supposed to sound, right? I think Commander Reed saw what was going on. He stuck his, because we were on the signal bridge playing, right behind the bridge. And Commander Reed, the CO, stuck his head out the door. Rodway, I don't care what you do, but beat that band to the punch. Yes, sir. They had a Marine detachment on that ship. I love the Marines, right? We played the Marine Corps hymn. We got such a hoot and holler from the other ship. They were all around that band over there. And, of course, they returned with Anchors Aweigh. Of course, we got the hoot and the holler for the Marine Corps, and from both ships, they got the raspberry for the Anchors Aweigh. My CO stuck his head out the window and goes. So, Freeport, Sierra Leone was the first port with that band. We played a concert ashore with that group. Coming back from that concert, the bell of the baritone horn, which they had found horns God knows where. The other photographer was with the Commodore. He came along with the band and was helping us bring stuff back on the Liberty launch to take back to the ship. He had the baritone horn. The bell didn't have the screws on it. So we got onto the pier and we're stepping off onto the boat, and the bell fell off that thing and down. That's the first port of a 3.5-month cruise. The bell is down the bottom by the pier. You know, I came back the next day with a pack of cigarettes. I don't smoke, but I brought a pack of cigarettes with me. They had one of the natives there in Freetown. Explained to him what the situation was. He dove down. I gave him a pack of cigarettes. He brought the bell up, and I ended up taking the thing back aboard ship and brassoing that bell and spray lacquering it. So, and we used it for the cruise. Anyway, go back to the ship. Freetown, Sierra Leone, Lagos, Nigeria, where we played a TV show with that combo. Cape Town, South Africa, where we played honors and cocktail, well, in Nigeria we played cocktail music aboard ship for the president of Nigeria with that combo. Then we played honors for the U.S. ambassador to South Africa with that band. Then we went up the east coast of Africa. From there, stopped in Malagasy, back to the ship. Malagasy, we pulled in Malagasy, and that chief corpsman ran into a captain in the French Foreign Legion. This captain was the leader of the French Foreign Legion band in Malagasy. Had his doctorate in music. Right? So he called me down to introduce me to this captain. So I asked this captain, do you have a copy of your French Foreign Legion march that I can play when we leave in port? He says, well, I do. He says, but my band room was way over on the other side of the island. He says, to go way back. Do you have any manuscript paper? I said, yeah. From memory, the man gave me a condensed score of the Legionnaires' March, which I made parts from, and we played it for leaving port. From there, up to the Suez Canal, through the Suez, Athens, Naples, Barcelona, and home. 3.5 months. Always, actually surrounded Africa. That was a great cruise. One of my favorite cruises, actually. One of my hardest working cruises, but one of my favorites. And like I've said it before, there's nothing like people you meet in the Navy and friends you make in the Navy that stick around forever, you know. You'll be talking to Andy Lucier. Andy's one of those guys too, you know. Andy was here with me. Great people, great people. So that's the Van Voorhis story, plus. Yeah, I went to the advanced course the second time. The first time was right out of, I had only been first class maybe a year or two at the time. A cocky 21-year-old that hit the School of Music in Anacostia. And I had Chief Ned Muffley, who later on was leader of the Navy band. He was my conducting instructor, drum major instructor, and conducting and drum major. And Chief Marshal Hawkins. Anybody know Hawk?
Name sounds familiar, but
Yeah, he was the first leader of the Commodores.
okay.
He was my dance band instructor. In fact, to this day, I see him at Navy musician reunions. I tease him about the guy that flunked me out of the course, and his retort is always, "I didn't flunk you out, you flunked you out," which was true. I was pretty cocky at the time. Made it through the second time. Made it through the course with John Morris. He used to come into conducting classes at the school and would critique, and the other instructors would critique, you know, your conducting. And one of his little, he wouldn't critique you in front of the students. You would get a little slip in your cubby hole in the advanced course classroom. And mine was, Rodway, you have to speak up and get agitated because you're going to put people to sleep because you're talking too much of a monotone. Okay. A few days later, I was in a classroom conducting. I was working with a group over here, and all of a sudden, in the back left corner of the band, came this big cymbal crash. One of the Marine instructors had come in, found a drummer asleep on the floor behind the, in the back. So from then on, my nickname was Rip Van Rodway. And I had one dance band instructor come in behind me, Mike Mazziola. And I'm working with the dance band, and the band started breaking up and laughing. I said, "What's going on?" I didn't say anything funny. Turned around, Mike had come in with a pillow and stretched across, So, I mean, they were really, really giving it to me. We took the test there at the school to make chief. And after the test was over, we all put we did it with the old IBM cards, you punch out the holes in the thing and it put it through the computer. We put all our cards together and they all lined up pretty good. So either we did great or we did lousy, all of us. We passed, we made it through. So that was that.
So, Jack, can you tell us a little bit about the first aviation bandmaster?
Oh. When I was an E5 in Boston, I just got married in May of 1958 to my late wife. May of 1958, I got married. August of 1958, I was down at the School of Music getting together with a group of musicians that were basic students were being put together as a band to go out to Westpac. So the chief of that band was a former Navy band DC bass player, right, by the name of Shehay, S-H-A-H-A, Shehay. We got aboard ship. We were on the USS Ranger for like 6 months, and we transferred to the USS Shangri-La for another 6 with the flag and stayed out in Westpac. But Shehay he was a comedian. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know any other musicians that are comedians. But he used to call himself the only aviation bandmaster in the fleet. So he would do that in the Chiefs mess. Well, the Chiefs that were on board got together, and they had, I don't know if you're aware of, on carriers, the lead people in any group all wear yellow sweatshirts while they're up on the flight deck with their title on the back. Well, the Chiefs on the ship had a yellow director's sweatshirt made for Chief Sheehay that said Aviation Bandmaster with a big lyre and wings on it, on his. So he would wear that when we played out, you know, wherever we went to play. On top of that, he was going in to get new crows and hash marks put on his uniform. The Chiefs went in behind him, unbeknownst to him, and they had a crow made. An E7 crow with the lyre and the wings. I think I sent you that picture.
I do have it.
And so they had that sewn on his uniform jacket. The admiral heard about it and ordered him to leave it there, leave it on. So he had to wear it all the time we were out there. Yeah. So that was the aviation bandmaster, the only one in the fleet ever. And by the way, the lead trombone player of that band in Westpac was Bill Watrous.
So Jack, any words of wisdom for the current Chiefs mess we have, and any thoughts on leadership you could leave with us as we close?
No, from what I see, everything's going great here. I don't know about the rest of the places, but no, just keep doing what you're doing and think about the people that are working for you. My dad had an expression that he used. He was the foreman of a dye house in a mill up in New Hampshire. And and I went by this a lot. You can't give an order unless you know how to take one. You know, so that's my way of thinking that way. You know, be sure what you're talking about and treat people the way you want to be treated. That's what I tried to do. Yeah.